Is an expert in Israeli politics and writes, and I quote, "While the Gaza war drags the Israeli government down, the second front with Hezbollah and the wider Middle East picks it up. All Netanyahu's recovery seems tied to regional escalation. Why?" Dahlia Scheindlin posed that question. She is a political analyst and fellow at the Century Foundation, and she joins us live from Tel Aviv. I was really interested in the conceit of your opinion piece. Can you just explain a little further where you were going with that?
Yeah, where I was going with that is where I see the polls going over the year of this war. For the first 6 months immediately after October 7th through April, Netanyahu and his government were suffering in public opinion. People blame them for the failures to detect and prevent and cope with October 7th. And everything that happened afterwards, and their polling numbers were very poor. But from around early April, beginning with the assassination of a senior al-Quds commander in Damascus, and the fact that there was an exchange of fire with Iran that did not escalate out of control, there began an incremental recovery of polling. We saw another inflection point in August after the double assassination of Fuad Shukr, senior Hezbollah commander in Beirut, and assassination attributed to Israel of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. And that also did not fully escalate into a regional war. It looked like Netanyahu had some sort of strategic control over the events in the regional dimension, and the polling got better for the government. Now, the government has regained, at this point, all of what it lost those first 6 months of the war. And my assessment is that it's because of the regional dimension. There's no evidence that Gaza is playing out well in the Israeli public. People are still devastated by the fact that there hasn't been a hostage release deal. They consistently prefer a hostage release deal, including the concessions that would mean on Israel's part, to the government's position. But everybody feels like the regional threat is kind of above politics, and that does play well for the government. However, it should be said, the government has not been able to regain the majority that it had in the November 2022 elections in surveys. So if elections were held today, they still wouldn't win, but elections will not be held today. They haven't even been called yet, and the government could also last the full term.
Yeah, and unless Benjamin Netanyahu collapses this government and were to get rid of the very right wing of this coalition, elections not expected anytime soon. I just want our viewers to get a further sense of the conceit of your opinion piece for Haaretz. Quote, "Israel and Hezbollah have turned the corner into full-scale war. No one can say how it will end or how much rubble and how many bodies will be left in its wake. But one modest prediction is credible. Based on recent experience, thanks to the war in Lebanon, Benjamin Netanyahu and his government will probably strengthen his political hand." And I think you've just spoken to that. What's your assessment of the appointment of Gideon Saar?
Well, it's interesting because in a way it strengthens the government. The government had 64 out of 120 seats beforehand, so it already had a majority, but there was always a threat that some of the coalition partners could bolt. So now it has 68 seats with the 4 seats that Gideon Saar's party brings to it. So Netanyahu is in a stronger position. What's interesting is that when we see Likud doing a tiny bit better in surveys following the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah on Friday, which is very new, of course, we don't know if these trends will last, but there hasn't been any change in the position of the overall coalition in surveys. They're still only getting between 49 and 53 seats. And as a result, bringing Saar in could also be perceived as an effort to reach outside the core supporters of the government. It's as if nothing moves those who are in the anti-Netanyahu bloc. Now, Saar doesn't have a great deal of credibility in the Israeli public. He only commands a small number of seats. Many people already see this as a betrayal of the voters because he ran with a party that was opposed to Netanyahu. But on the other hand, the Israeli public is also absolutely kind of demoralized by the political levels right now. They are deeply distrustful. All surveys are showing a sort of crisis of faith in the leadership. And there is a great call for unity. So maybe Gideon Saar is hoping that he gets some credit for putting the unity of politicians first in order to reassure the public. And Netanyahu may be hoping to reach a little bit outside of the core of supporters for the government, which, remember, this government represents a very extreme ultra-nationalist, militant and militarist and even conquest-oriented position, and their voters represent that too, and that's why they haven't been able to reach beyond the core supporters of the government. Surely Netanyahu is hoping for a little more of that credibility.
Yeah, and that government has really damaged the legitimacy of this Israeli government in the eyes of many outside of Israel, as well as those inside. There is Benjamin Netanyahu in a position at the moment threading a needle between security on the one hand and legitimacy on the other. Going forward, how is he going to work that through? The current war has brought Israel to its most severe situation of sort of I would say on the threshold of international isolation that it has really not faced since. Now, I don't want to overstate the case, but there are numerous ways in which Israel faces significant, ramifications, even among its allies, even among its democratic allies, and he has been playing fire with the relationship with the U.S. Having said that, I think what he's trying to do is, from his perspective, he has long sought a greater conflagration in the Middle East that even draws the U.S. in. And, it's hard to say for sure what's going on inside his head, but just reading the actions of the last number of days, it looks very much like he is pushing the U.S. to a situation where there could very well be a severe escalation in the Middle East, including possibly attacks on U.S. forces that would drag the U.S. in. And so it's almost as if he's not really going to give his allies a choice about international isolation or not. He's trying to pull them in and create the kind of binary divide that he described in his UN speech. The good guys and the bad guys, it's how he sees the world, or at least it's how he wants the world to see Israel. The problem is that Israel behaves like the bad guys in many ways with its undemocratic and conquest-oriented positions of this government, and yet feels like it legitimately can expect the support of what it calls the good guys who advance peace and democracy. And I think there's a lot of uncertainty around how those democratic allies will see Israel in the coming years. Right. Dahlia, always good to have you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Dahlia.